Hello, this is a tutorial for how to get Sekiro all set up to do speedruns. This is aimed at PC players. Unfortunately for console players, a lot of these tools just do not exist, so you will not be able to utilize them. And all of this is going to be covering the technical aspects of setting it up. So things like downpatching, setting up LiveSplit, setting up OBS, things like that. For everything that I'm going to talk about, you can find a link down below to the speedrun.com page for Sekiro, and there's guides and resources on there as well, but I wanted to make a video form for it so that I can cover a lot of the things that people have trouble with. There's also, linked down below, there is the Discord, the Sekiro speedrunning Discord, and what you can do is you can ask any questions in there. If you have any troubles, please just watch through this first and try to figure it out on your own, and if you're still having trouble, feel free to ask in the Discord. Okay, so first thing that I want to cover is downpatching. And so for downpatching, we first need to ask ourselves a question of, is it even worth it to downpatch at all? Because in a lot of cases, the answer is no. If you look on the speedrun.com leaderboard, you'll see that oftentimes the world record is run on 1.04, but that does not mean it's faster. In fact, in most cases, 1.04 and 1.06 are effectively tied. It is unclear which one is faster. They both gain and lose half a second here, lose half a second there, and so it's very unclear which one is better. So if you are running pretty much any of the unrestricted or glitchless categories, you can run on 1.04 or 1.06. If you're running a no air swim category, then you will need to downpatch to 1.02. A couple of ones that I do recommend that you probably want to downpatch at some point would be the longer all memories and all bosses categories, because after you kill the Sword Saint Ishin on 1.06, there's a couple of extra dialogue boxes that pop up and you have to skip through. This loses you maybe like 1 to 2 seconds. It's not a big deal, but there is an actual time difference in these longer categories. In these smaller ones, there really isn't, and if you wanted to downpatch, you can, but you really should not feel like it's necessary. Okay, so now let me talk about how to downpatch, because the process can be a little bit confusing. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to hold the Windows key. I'm assuming you're on a Windows computer, so you hold the Windows key and press R to bring up this little dialog box down here, where you're going to want to type in exactly this: steam://nav/console, and hit enter. So this is going to bring you over into the console for Steam, where you can see it, list the stuff that's going on with Steam, and where we can enter commands into the console in order to get it to do things. Now, for these commands, I'm just going to copy paste from a guide. There's very specific commands, so I'm just going to bring the guide over here. And this guide, by the way, is linked in the description. And so let's say we're downpatching to 1.02. That's generally the more important one. 1.04, you never need to downpatch to, but 1.02 you might need to for a no air swim category. So I'm just going to copy the first command, go back into Steam, paste it in, and it's going to start downloading. Now, Steam is not very fast with downloading through this console, so this can take quite a while, but you're going to go ahead and let that run, let that finish up. Once it does finish up, hey, there it is. That wasn't so bad. We're now going to download this other one. The second one should be quite a bit longer. So when we type this one in, it's just going to go and it's going to run, and it's 12 gigs, so that's going to take a little while. But go ahead and let that run, and once it's finished, we can skip ahead to the next part. So see you in a bit. All right, here we are. It finally finished downloading. That took me about an hour to download. For you, it could take longer, and you really don't get to see anything, right? This is when it started, and then it doesn't say anything until it says completed. So if it feels like it's taking a while, really just give it some time, and it should eventually either finish or tell you some sort of error. So once it does finish, you'll see it tells you exactly where it has downloaded to. So we're going to go ahead and navigate to that. So we open up an Explorer. We go into our program files. I made an example one that's a little clearer so that I don't have to search through everything. But it should be program files, Steam, Steam apps, and then there are two that we're going to want here: common and content. Content is where it got downloaded to, but common is where we want it to end up. So I'm going to go into common first, and you should already have a Sekiro folder in there with all of your current 1.06 files. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a new folder that is going to be our downpatched version. So I'm going to call it Sekiro 102. Don't put the dot in there. Files can get confused with the dot. But just Sekiro 102, blank folder where we can now put stuff. Okay, now I'm going to open a second Explorer. Gonna go back to the same thing again. We're going to go to Program Files, Steam, Steam Apps. This time Content for what we downloaded is under this app underscore this. We're going to go to the first depot, which has got our Sekiro.exe. We're going to copy that into our 1.02 folder. That's the application that's going to start it. And then we're also going to go back into the other depot, and we're going to download all of this, or sorry, copy all of this into the Sekiro 102 folder. With this, it will have pretty much everything that it needs in order to start up the game. There is one last thing that we are going to need in order to finish this downpatching process. We're going to go back into Common. We're going to go to our 1.06 folder that we had, and we're going to copy the pack.dat file. That one specific file, for some reason, is not included in the downpatching, but that's okay. It's the exact same file that we use for 106, so we'll just copy that one right on over. And now you pretty much have a working Sekiro 1.02 version. Okay, from here, there's a little bit of a split depending on how you want to get this to work. If you are happy with having this as a completely separate thing that should not replace your 1.06 in any way, then we can make it work separately as a standalone Steam game. The only problem with that is when I go into Steam and I go to my library and I look at Sekiro, you see this time played, this total time that I have. It won't count to that if we enter it as a separate game. If you want it to count towards those hours, then what you're going to need to do is you're going to go back in and you're going to rename your original Sekiro as Sekiro 106, and then you can take your 102 and just call it Sekiro. When this happens now, when you hit play in Steam, it's going to open up whichever one is just called Sekiro. So it will open your 102 version. That's one possible solution. The other possible solution, if you just want them both to be able to open up, is you go into whichever one you want to open, and you're going to make a new text document. So just a .text type document, and we're just going to call it Steam_app ID. We're going to open that up, and it's just a blank document. And then again, from our downpatching, we are going to copy in this number here into that document. So if we open that in, we save that in, we now see in our folder there's this Steam_app ID. Then now I can just double click on the exe, and here we have it. And now it has opened up our 1.02 version. Little problem with the save files, so hold on, we can fix that. But yeah, that is how you would do it. It now opens up the 1.02 version. But yeah, if you do that Steam_app ID, it will open on its own. If you want it to open through Steam instead, just rename it to base Sekiro. Either way works. Okay, but the save files. If you have 1.06 save files, it will not let you play on 1.02. It will give you that error. It'll say, uh-oh, your save files are out of date. So what we need to do is we need to navigate to where our save files are kept. So in this case, we're going to go back to C. It's generally under Users, your username, and then there's a hidden folder called App Data. Now, this is probably how it's going to look for you, where it doesn't have app data. You'll look through the folders, and it's like, where's app data? You need to go to View, and then check Hidden Items so that you can see it. App data is hidden by default. So you go to App Data, Roaming, Sekiro, and then there's a file with just a bunch of numbers on it. Your numbers are going to be different than mine. I think it's your unique Steam ID or something. I'm not really sure what the numbers are. But you open that up, And I've got a bunch of folders here that I've used to practice, but here are your save files, and you are going to need to take those, and you're going to need to delete them to be able to play on 1.02 or on 1.04. You take those two files, you delete them, and it'll start you fresh with brand new files. If you want to keep your files first, if you want to say, well, I don't want to get rid of them forever, just make a new folder. Say this is my old save. And then you can go ahead and take those two files and just drag and move them into old save. Now they're saved forever, and when you open up Sekiro, it will create some new ones for you. So that is how you downpatch. Speaking of save files, here is how you can set up your save files for practicing different sections of the run. For example, let's say I wanted to practice Gyobu over and over. So first thing I would do is I would head into the game and I would get to where I want to create my file. For this example, I'm going to do it right on this little tower thing here, right as I'm about to drop into the Gyobu arena. So once I'm happy with where I want to make the save, I'm going to go ahead and quit out of the game so that my save file will be right there. And then I've got to switch over and I've got to find my place where the save file is held. So in this case, I'll show that again. It's generally under C, Users, your username, app data, which is a hidden folder. You need to show hidden items to get into it. Roaming, Sekiro, numbers, and then you'll generally see these two files. The only one that you need to copy is the top one, the .sl2, but you can copy both for safety if you want. But we're going to copy that, and we're going to make a new folder, and we can name it whatever we want. I like to start with the title of the run that I'm doing, so glitchless. I like to give it a number, so Gyobu is generally the second boss that you do, so I'll call it Glitchless 2, and then Gyobu. The reason I do that is so that I can sort everything alphabetically, and then everything will be in a nice solid order, but if you don't really care, you can name it whatever, and then we're just going to copy and paste into there. So now we can go ahead and practice Gyobu, and let's say we kill him, or let's say we die. We could then just copy the file from here, go back out to this, replace the file, and it'll get us right back in front of Gyobu once again. So that is one way that you can do it. If that seems like too much work, too much effort, constantly having to tab out and then replace the file and all of that, there is a save organizer that will do all of this for you. I'll have it linked down in the description where you can find where to download it. But basically, it works pretty much the same way. So when you open it up, you're going to edit profiles, and you're going to enter in the location of the save file, so you can again browse and find that same location we were just talking about, as well as a profile directory. This really could be anywhere, but I tend to do it, basically, it's in the same location. Here's where all of my actual files are held, but then I created a folder called Save Profiles that has it in it. And so then, from there, you create a new profile. You have to actually go new and give a new profile name. So, for example, I might call this Profile 2. And so then, when I have Profile 2 here, you can see it's currently got no files. I can import my current save. So once again, go into the game, get the spot you want, quit out, import save, that'll make it here, and then rename it. So you have to right-click, rename. So this one is a file for, Gyobu. Boom. And now it's saved. Now if I want to reload it, I will use the Load Save State button. That will replace it and get me back to Gyobu again. There are some keybinds that you can set up, so some settings. For example, the most important one is Load Selected Save, so that way you don't have to tab out and click on Load Save State. You can just press, in this case I have it set up as P, you press P. Make sure to have global hotkeys on so it will actually activate when you're in game. If you don't have that setting on, it might not activate when you try to press it in game, nothing happens and you're like, that's weird. So I set it to P, you can set it to whatever, and make sure global hotkeys is on. Then when you press P in-game, it will replace the save back to what you started with. Okay, so next let's talk about some of the settings that you can use for Sekiro that are going to be the best for speedrunning, give you the best times. So first of all, we're going to go and we're going to find the actual Sekiro file itself. So in this, it's generally under Program Files, Steam, Steam Apps, Common, whichever Sekiro file you're using. And then under the Sekiro.exe, we're going to right-click and go to Properties, and then go over to Compatibility, and we're going to check Disable Full Screen Optimizations. Something weird happens with Sekiro where it actually runs worse in full screen, but if you check this, it will run just as well in full screen as in any other setting. So you should just have this on all the time, just in case. We go ahead and apply that and hit OK. So that's our first setting. Next, we're going to actually open up the game, and there's some settings within the game that we're going to make sure to have selected. So in here, we're going to go into the settings. And under game options, auto target, you generally want off. It's fine either way, but if you're getting into some of the advanced dead angling, I recommend to have it off. Camera options is whatever you want. Sound and display, very, very important. Turn subtitles off. Absolutely must have subtitles off. It's required for a lot of the dialogue strategies that we use in the game. Must have that off. Controller configuration, you can have set up however you want. Key configuration, you can have that set up however you want. Input device options, that's whatever. Graphics options, I generally recommend going with a lower graphics settings, but you really can use whatever you want. There's one thing that you absolutely should have off, though, which is motion blur. It's going to be a lot harder to hit things precisely if everything is blurry on your screen whenever you're trying to turn the camera and things like that. So motion blur is a must to be off. Everything else, whatever you want. I just run on low. It still looks pretty good on low, I think. And lastly, network settings must be offline. This is actually required in the rules. If you are online mode in this setting, then your run could actually be rejected. And I don't want that to happen, so make sure you are in offline mode there. So that is all the settings that you need to be as fast as possible for Sekiro. All right, next let's talk about setting up LiveSplit. So first thing you need to do is you need to actually download the latest version of LiveSplit. Link is going to be in the description. And once you've got it downloaded, you basically just unpack it, and you've got this big old folder of a bunch of stuff for LiveSplit. Go ahead and start LiveSplit. I'd also generally recommend making a shortcut to it somewhere. I have it down here, but for now, we're just going to open it up from here. And it's going to basically just look like a timer, and that's not very useful. So we're going to go ahead and edit the splits and make sure that the game name is Sekiro. So if you start typing it in, it should autofill for you. And so if you do that, there's this activate button, which sort of automatically gets hit. Make sure it's not deactivated. Make sure it is activated. And if you have that going, your timer is basically set up for Sekiro. The other thing that you generally want to do is change the compare against to be game time instead of real time. These are the two most important things. Then you can set up the splits for yourself. However, if you want to just use what I use, I have a pretty default, setup for the splits and for the layout, then I have included a link to those as well in the description down below that you can just download those and use those. So in that case, you're just going to use open splits. You're going to find the ones that I linked. I just called it Sure Glitchless, and it'll say, oh, do you want to save these new splits? Nah, we don't need these ones. And if you load in, you should see these splits. This also has an auto splitter attached to it, so that's going to be very convenient for you. There's also a layout. Now, the generic LiveSplit layout's pretty good, but if you want the one that I use, I've included that as well. This generic layout that looks like this. So that will pretty much set up everything that you need to do Sure Glitchless. If you want to do another category, then you're going to want to create the splits yourself, and you're going to want to create the auto splits. The way that you create an auto split is you go under the settings for it, and you basically just say, when do you want it to split? For example, maybe I'm doing all bosses, and I want it to split immediately when I kill the boss, Demon of Hatred. I just select all of those, and then hit the little plus, and that makes it into a split. Now, that's sort of the basics of it. And then if you want to create very, very custom auto splits, you might want to do something like, I want to do it when I reach a certain position. And so if you open up the game, you get to the position you want, and you click this button, it will fill in your exact position. So when you get there in the future, it will automatically split. There is also I trigger a flag. Now, I trigger a flag is a lot harder to use. They're numbers for the flag, but there's this handy-dandy event logger here, the event flag logger, this one here. Oh, it's not going to work while I don't have the game open. But basically, if you have the game open and you click on that one, it will show all the events that happen, all the flags that happen. So let's say you wanted to split when you talk to Tengu after killing Yobu. What you're going to do is you're going to go do that. You're going to talk to Tengu, and you're going to look at the number of the flag that pops up, and you're going to put that right in here and give a description. This is when you talk to Tengu, and you can add that as your own custom auto split. There is a big list of all the auto splits that you can find in the Sekiro speedrunning Discord. Once again, links down below. But if you want to create your own, if you don't like the ones that everyone else has, that is how you can do it. So that's everything you should need for setting up LiveSplit and your own auto splits. All right, next let's talk about some of the practice tools that you can use in Sekiro to make your practice time more efficient. I've linked both of them down below. There's the JDSD practice tool as well as Cheat Engine with a specific cheat table. Let's start with the JDSD practice tool. To use it, you're going to need Sekiro already open and in-game. So for example here, I am ready to fight Gyobu. And then I'm going to tab out over to where I downloaded the practice tool from. Make sure to unzip it and go into the folder, and you'll see this. Go ahead and double click, and that's going to start up the practice tool. Now, when you go back into Sekiro, you'll see the practice tool over here on the left. If you hit open, you can see all the different things and all the different keybinds that it can do. One of the most important ones is saving your position down here. So if I use the right shift plus H, it will save my position right here. So now if I walk away somewhere and press H, it teleports me right back. Very useful for practicing skips. Another one that's useful for practicing fights, you can see right here, is no dead. So that way, you're not going to be able to die. You can also do things like no damage, so that you can't damage the enemies, they can't damage you, and you can just practice boss fights for as long as you want. And you can see there's a lot of other cool stuff. Play around with it. Very, very helpful. So there is the first one. In order to get it to go away, the only thing you can really do is you can go all the way back out and close the game. If you close the game, that's going to close the practice tool as well. So the other practice tool that we have to take a look at is Cheat Engine. So Cheat Engine looks like this. And once again, you're going to need Sekiro to be open in order to use Cheat Engine. So I'm going to go ahead and open Sekiro back up. And on Cheat Engine, once Sekiro is open, we can select the process Sekiro to attach it. Then you're going to need to download the cheat table, also linked in the description down below. And you're going to open up that cheat table. And so this cheat table has all the different cheats for all the different versions that you might want. In this case, we're on 1.06. If you want to use the position tool, you go under the 1.06, you hit that, and then under the position tool, there's a save location and restore location, and you're just going to right click and set a hotkey for those. I have it as comma in order to save my location, and for restoring my location, I have it as one of my mouse buttons. So for me, those are the convenient ones, but set it to whatever you like. If you're on a different game version, go ahead and use the other ones. If you're on 104, use the 1.03 one. 1.03 and 1.04 are identical patches, so we just didn't make two separate ones. If you want some more general cheats, it's under Enable. So if you want God mode, that's not dying. If you want to change a multiplier on your damage, maybe you want to set your damage to 100 times so that you can one-shot enemies. Maybe you want to set it to 0 times so you can practice. Whatever you need, there's a bunch of different ones down in here. There's also some different ones under player, such as health. So if you want to set your health to a specific number, that's where you would do that in there, and so on. So that is how you end up using Cheat Engine. It's more outside of the game as opposed to the practice tool, which happens inside of the game. They both have very similar features, though, however you want to use them. Lastly, let's talk about how to set up OBS, your broadcasting software. So when you download and install it, this is what it should look like. Generally, I've got a couple of extra things going on with stream elements and all of that, so yours might look a tiny bit more basic, but here's the gist of it. So you start with setting up a scene. So I've got here an example scene for us to look at, and then you're going to add the sources that you want. A very generic one is display capture. That's just going to capture everything that happens here on the monitor. But maybe you don't want everything captured. Maybe you want it only to show Sekiro. Then you can do a game capture. I'm going to add a new one, so this will be an example capture. And it starts off with capture any full screen application, but you can say, I want it to capture a specific window, and you can go and say, I want you to capture only Sekiro. And then when you hit OK, boom, now only Sekiro shows up. I'm still looking at OBS, but you guys can only see Sekiro. If I uncheck that, then Sekiro goes away, and you can see my full monitor. If I check that, you only get to see Sekiro. Okay, so maybe you also want to add your webcam. That's just another webcam source in here. So video capture device. I'm just going to add my currently existing one here. And boom, there I am. Hello. And yeah, so you can add all the various things that you want. One big thing that you're going to need to add, and it's going to make sure that we have it correct, is you're going to need to add a source for LiveSplit. So let me go ahead and open up LiveSplit here to show it. So here's my LiveSplit. Currently, I just have it on my screen, but I want it to show up even when it's on my other monitor. Even when I can't actually see it, I want it to show up on my recording. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this off the screen so it's not showing up there. And we're going to add a window capture, create new, and select LiveSplit. There it is. Hit OK. Now we've got our LiveSplit here, and I can drag that around, and it's going to change where it shows up on my recording. So I'm going to put that over here on the right, for example. You could put it pretty much wherever you want, but there are some things you're not allowed to be covering, for example, like the health of Sekiro and stuff up here. You're not allowed to cover like the items and things down here or down here. You're not allowed to cover up the experience gain up here. So in the middle on the right is a safe spot for it. But let's do it one better. Let's take the background of it and make it transparent. So in order to do that, we'll go to our LiveSplit capture, and we're going to go to filters, and we're going to add a filter. We're going to add a color key. Not crop pad. I must have missed it. Color key. There we go. And so for color key, we can select the color that we want. And in this case, I'm going to go for a custom color. And the color that I want is going to be black. So anything that is close to black is going to get filtered out. I can change the similarity on that for how much close to black it needs to be. And you can kind of see up here that it's changing how much is shown. If I go to similarity of 0, it's cutting nothing out. If I go to a similarity of 1,000, it's starting to cut out even the white things. So we don't really want that. We want somewhere in the middle. Choose where you think it's mostly got everything cut out, but you're not going to start to cut out the things that are not black. So somewhere in the middle, maybe. You can play around with the other settings as well, but generally around a middle similarity and everything else default works just fine. And now you can see, look over here. Now it's just got the text. I can put it even over my face. It's just got the text and none of that black background. So that's a great way to get it set up where you can put this now anywhere on the screen and it's not going to be covering up anything important. It's not going to get your run invalidated. So that is some of the most important stuff for setting up OBS. Play around with it, get it how you like it. You know, maybe start streaming if you really like the speedruns. There's always an audience for streaming some good speedruns. But that'll about do it. Hope this tutorial for all the technical aspects was helpful, and I'll see you all later. Have a good one. Bye-bye.